This is a short story by Sarah Honeysett. It is called The Tale of Two Kettles. To find other stories by Sarah Honeysett, look on Amazon, and also you can find other free short stories on my blog, sarahhoneysett.blogspot.co.uk. Enjoy. The Story of the Two Kettles. This is the story of the kettle and the pot. Now, to introduce them both to you, first is the electric kettle. The electric kettle, called Lecky, was a tall, white and plastic fellow. He had a button at the back that lit up orange when he was switched on. Lecky, the electric kettle, was a very proud fellow indeed, and fancied himself the most important member of the kitchen. But the truth was, Lecky was not a nice chap at all, as you will soon discover. Then there was the gas kettle, Gassy. Gassy was a round, squat fellow who had a shiny red body and a short, whistling spout. But sadly, Gassy was very rarely ever used. He now lived in the back of a cupboard with all the other kitchen equipment that were also rarely used. But oh, when he had his chance to perform, he was a joy to hear and see. How the sunlight would bounce off his shiny red body, making him gleam rosy red. How he would bubble and boil and bump around on the gas hob as he brought the water to a boil. Finally, he let everyone know that tea was ready by singing at the top of his voice the sweetest whistle you can imagine. But as I say, he was rarely used, and now his red body was covered in dust. I'm sorry to report that his life was made quite miserable by Lecky. Lecky was a cocky bully, and he spent the better part of his day making fun of Gassy. He found it such fun to remind him all the time that he, Lecky, was the favourite for boiling water. "Look at me, boiling again. Goodness, I never stop, do I? Pity they can't be bothered to use you, eh? Yeah, you in there, Gassy. I know you can hear me in that cupboard. You must be so sick of being buried in there. When was the last time you got used, eh? In the dark ages. Ha! Of course they don't want to use you. Why would they, when they've got me? Sleek, modern, state-of-the-art me. Whereas you belong in the dark ages yourself. Ha!" He was not above being nasty to the other equipment in the cupboard, such as the fondue set. However, the fondue set was French, and only understood French, so she paid no attention to the nasty things Lecky said. As for the other members of the kitchen, standing behind Lecky were the 3 jars containing tea, coffee and sugar. Lecky liked to think that he was the boss of them, and constantly told them off for not facing the front or for having their lids ajar. On the other side of the cooker was the toaster. The toaster was glossy and black, with buttons that lit up blue when pressed. He sometimes tried to be nasty to the oven grill when he was used for the umpteenth slice of toast. However, the grill would reply in his gruff tones, "They still use me for hot cross buns and baguette, so pipe down." Well, the toaster had nothing to say to that, so he would chat to the big tall glass jar of oats on the other side of him. The jar of oats was called Oaty. She was a rather hit-and-miss character to talk to. She was always having mood swings, depending on how full of oats she was. When full of oats, she would be singing excitedly, "I'm happy, happy, happy! I'm full of the joys of spring!" Later, when she got about half full, she would be saying, I'm okay, can't complain, could be better though." But when she was finally almost empty, she would go into a wailing meltdown. "Oh, I'm empty, empty! It's all over for me! I'm nearly gone! Oh, boo-hoo-hoo! Whatever shall I do?" But then, of course, she would be filled up again to the brim, and once again she would be singing, "I'm happy, happy, happy! I'm full of the joys of spring! Whoopee!" So chatting to Oaty was always very exciting, although rather erratic. This was how it continued, day after day, week after week, year after year. Gussie bravely bore the nastiness Lecky threw his way, although it made him very miserable. But he thought this was the way things would always be. But he was wrong, as this story is about to show. There came a day when a ferocious storm blew in from the sea. It brought with it raging winds and lashing rain. The people inside the houses could hear the wind outside smashing into the walls as if it would break them down. The winds pushed and pushed against the trees, bending them this way and that, until the wind found a tree that could be blown right over. Down it went with a tremendous creak and crash, down, 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 right on top of the local electric power station for the area. There was an explosion of green electric sparks, and with a flicker of all the lights in the area, they blinked and went out. The whole house went very quiet. But then the people who lived in the house could be heard calling to each other, "Is it a power cut?" "I think so." "Have we still got the kettle we used to use for camping?" "Yes, it's in the cupboard with the fondue set." Thus it was that Gussie found himself finally lifted out of the darkness. He was given a wash, and his shiny red body gleamed once more. He was filled up with splashing clear water and set on the gas hob. The blue flames of the hob were lit, and they started to gently warm his bottom. Soon Gussie started to bubble and rattle around on the hob. When the water was finally ready, Gussie sang his sweet, cheerful song of joy. For Gussie was a whistling kettle, and their singing is the best sound to hear in the morning. It's a happy sound that sings of the first cup of tea of the day. The people in the house found themselves smiling as they heard it, and wondered why hadn't they used Gussie for so long. The tea was made, and Gussie rested warm on the hob while the people went into the living room. In the living room, a similar transformation was happening. The loud and boisterous TV in the corner of the room was now silent. The house people turned instead to their bookcase. The books had become dusty because they had not been used for so long. As they were taken off the shelves, the books felt so happy to have their pages opened once more. The younger books, as they were lifted off the shelves, blew raspberries at the silent TV. The older books were more dignified, and simply put their noses in the air and said, "Hmm." The candles were brought out to shed some more light. It was a very grey, cloudy day. Now the candles had been asleep in their bag for such a long time that they were quite shocked to be taken out again. But when they got their headdresses of flickering golden flames, they couldn't help but dance and bob about with happiness. Altogether, it was a very different sort of house, and there was much happiness to be found in it. Apart, that was, from the sulking silence of Lecky. He had spent his time glaring furiously at Gussie when he saw Gussie being used instead of him. "Just you wait and see," he yelled angrily at Gussie. They'll get rid of you just as soon as I'm working again. I'll see you put in the bin yet." I think you may have already guessed. Lecky was not a nice character at all. He could not be happy that Gussie was being used again. His only thought was how to get rid of him. Several miles away, at the electric power station, the engineers were hard at work, repairing the damage caused by the fallen tree. They had taken bits apart and replaced other parts. Finally, they had the power station ready. They dusted off their hands and switched on the big main switch of the electric station. At once, a surge of lightning-quick electricity raced through the pylons and wires, faster than you or I could ever run. The electricity raced its way to Gussie and Lecky's house. With a massive surge, it reached the house, and so fast, too fast, too fast for Lecky's wires. It burst through Lecky's wires with a fierce bang. "Oh! Ah! My bottom!" cried Lecky, as his electrics in his bottom were quite burnt out. Then Lecky noticed that his wires didn't work. "What's the matter with me?" he cried. All this was unnoticed by the house people, because as soon as the electric came back on, it greatly startled the house alarm. House alarms, as you might guess, are very jumpy and nervous. It can take the slightest thing to wake them up and send them panicking. On this occasion, the alarm woke with a jump, and immediately started screaming help, or rather screeching help, 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 help. It was deafening. The people of the house were frantically pressing the alarm's buttons, but to no avail. They had to shout at each other over the noise, and neither of them could figure out how to switch off the alarm. The woman took her shoe off and tried hitting the alarm with it, but that didn't work, of course. The man went to the bookcase to find the instruction book, but it was buried messily under piles of paper. The papers were being tossed here and there as he scrabbled to get the instructions. Finally he found them and got the alarm turned off. Phew! They were both exhausted after that, and decided they needed a cup of tea. That's when they discovered that Lecky was silent and didn't work any more. "The electric surge must have blown its circuits," guessed the man. They lit the flaming hob under Gussie instead, and as he began to sing, the sun came out. The sunshine glowed through the window and lit up Gussie's red body. The birds began to sing, and it seemed as if the birds and Gussie were singing along together. It was very beautiful, and the house people agreed that they liked Gussie. "Let's not replace the electric kettle, eh? We'll just keep this gas one," they agreed together. So the house people picked up Lecky and opened the front door to take him out to the rubbish bin. That's when the next door neighbours saw them. "Hey, you're not putting a perfectly good kettle in the bin, are you?" the neighbour shouted over to them. "The electricity surge has broken it," the house people called back. "Well, don't throw it out. Give it to me and I'll fix it. I need a new kettle," said the neighbour. So Lecky was handed over to the neighbour, who was a bit of a whiz at fixing things. Soon Lecky was working again, and he was placed in the neighbour's kitchen. In his new kitchen, Lecky made sure that he was nice to the other kitchen equipment. He had at last mended his ways. From his new kitchen window he could see across to his former home and see Gussie there. Gussie and Lecky would smile at each other through the window of their kitchens. From then on, every morning, when the sun shone through the window, it found Gussie singing merrily that the morning tea was ready. The birds sang along with his cheerful song, and Gussie always had a smile. Anyone want a cup of tea? If you enjoyed this story, check out Sarah Honeysett's books on Amazon, and also my short stories on my blog, sarahhoneysett.blogspot.co.uk. Thank you.